you are obviously a medical doctor. What is the best way going forward to get a single payer in this country? Most countries have that, and we need it too.
Exactly. We need it, and we can afford it, in fact, because it doesn't cost any more than what we are paying right now. It simply ensures that our healthcare dollars are paying for healthcare, not for health profiteering. We need a healthcare system that is established for people, not for making profit. So again, this is all a matter of achieving critical mass. We need to come together as the many movements we are for health justice, for climate justice, for racial and economic and LGBT justice, and women's justice. When we get together with the courage of our convictions, we're unstoppable.
Hello, this is Niswander. Welcome to the Nowman Show. Medicare for all, also known as single payer option, would create a new government-run national health care insurance program to replace the Affordable Care Act coverage, otherwise known as Obamacare. Now, in California, there is a movement to put Medicare for all single payer on the table. A universal national health care system that covers all Americans and has become one of the many convergence issues bringing people together. Today we are joined by two guests, Kenneth Meija, the Green Party candidate who is running for U.S. Congress in the election of 2018, representing the 34th District here in Los Angeles, and Jenni Chang, who is a Medicare for All grassroots activist. Welcome to the Nowman Show.
Thanks for having us.
Kenneth, now you're obviously, as you saw there, that's the Green Party's presidential candidate from 2012 and 2016. And this is a big part of the Green Party platform, and it's also a coalition issue. First of all, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing and out there on the ground.
Right, so my name is Kenneth Meija. I'm a 26-year-old representing the Green Party running in the April 4th, 2017 special election.
Ah, okay.
And, we're basically what we're doing on the ground is we're educating people, on the issues that matter to them, like Medicare for All, for example. And so we're reaching out to different organizations, different coalitions, knocking on doors to let them know about, you could fight for something better, which is single payer. So a lot of grassroots work.
That's fantastic. So, Jenni.
Hi.
Hi. You do a lot of coalition work, bringing groups together. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm with two groups, Progressive Action for Glendale. I was born out of the Glendale for Bernie movement. Glendale for Bernie group during the primaries.
Yeah.
And another group is Progressive Asian Network for Action. And
Great.
both groups are working on pushing Medicare for all. We are working with California Nurses Association, which is part of a larger coalition known as Campaign for Healthy California. That's an organization of 60-plus groups just pushing for a single payer, and they just partnered with another coalition known as All Care Alliance, another group, many groups, like you've got social advocacy groups, businesses, healthcare groups, all pushing for this bill, which is now drafted, and they have an author.
So it is an actual bill being submitted in Sacramento.
Right.
Do you know what date that is?
I think the public rollout will be February 20th or so, February 22nd, somewhere in this month.
So after, that'll be, our show will be airing after that time, but, so that is coming right up. So that's fantastic.
There's a lot of urgency and excitement.
So in general, California leads the way, usually in progressive change. So the Green Party is kind of like the main focus right now, right, as far as progressive change is concerned. Is that correct? I mean, what is it like down there on the ground? What kind of response are you getting from people?
Yeah, so when we're talking to people, it's actually, we're getting great responses. In LA, I think people are sort of sick and tired of getting ignored by their elected officials, whether it be city council, state, or federal level, and they see it's about the two-party system. But when we talk to them and we say, hey, we're from the Green Party, we're actually here fighting for you against gentrification, for health insurance, they're like, oh my goodness, I only thought it was Democrats and Republicans. And I'm like, no, there's us. And they're really receptive to it, because I think the community now is what they're seeing in the past election cycle going on right now. They're sick and tired of it.
Yes.
And this is the perfect moment for coalition building. And that's what we're doing. So they love it. They're receptive. So, yeah.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that, you know, many countries around the country have not only had single payer for a while, they've had it for decades.
Right.
I mean, even countries like Saudi Arabia and Israel have had some kind of a national single payer healthcare program for decades. We are the richest country in the world, and maybe both of you can respond to this question, like, we're the richest country in the world, why can't we get a national plan like that here?
Do you want to take a stab at this? I mean, our government is beholden to special interests. We've got insurance companies, pharmaceutical companies. I mean, when you have pharmaceutical CEOs making the highest pay of any CEOs of any industry, and this is healthcare, the battle's going to be really hard. This is not a fight we can't win. We just need people galvanized and educated and coming into the fold. That's what it's going to take, and that's why I'm always saying this is bigger than any candidate. This is going to take the people. It's going to take it's going to take all of us educating each other and doing grassroots outreach and not just talking to each other.
That's right, but it starts with conversation. It starts with meeting people, as you know, as you do on the ground, as you do connecting with the Nurses Association. I believe that we were talking earlier. You said there was 60 plus advocacy groups out there.
Oh, right.
Wow.
There's a lot of labor movement.
I mean, and it's growing, right?
Right.
And I'm looking. I want to mention a statistic here. I've looked at a couple of statistics here. There was a Gallup poll, and this has been pretty consistent. 58% nationwide are in favor of a single-payer program. There's a group called Progressive Change Institute. 13% in their poll opposed it. Just as recent as February of 2016, Kaiser did a poll with a 64% positive reaction towards single payer. So the fact that people want this and we can't get this, obviously it's a political economic issue. People want to make profits off of healthcare, and one of the things of the Green Party we're going to get into in discussing politics in another segment is, you know, their platform is over profit, peace, people, over profit. So what is, in your advocacy and education of people, Jenni, what are you doing to educate people about what this means, even in a fundamental level, let alone going into details?
Yeah, fundamental level. Like we have people who've never been politically active come into the fold, so then they want to know the difference between, like, why do I need to fight for Medicare? What is it exactly? And then what is single payer? So we have to break that down. I have to explain that we would. Do
you distinguish between Affordable Care Act and Medicare for All when you educate people?
Well, so like with Affordable Care Act, some people don't know that it's the same thing as Obamacare.
Yes, or Romney Care.
Or, yeah, sure. We got lots of insured people in Massachusetts.
Yes, that's right.
The most of any state in this country. So, I mean, we have to straighten these things out and let people know that this is a good thing. And we really have to emphasize this concept of no insurance is weird to a lot of people. And so we have to say, look, they're creating obstacles. They're raising deductibles, so you can't even afford preventative care, like you don't even bother going to the doctor. We talk about access. They're preventing access. They don't want, these insurance companies, they don't want you going to the doctor, and also they're fighting back. Like when you go to a doctor, they're constantly fighting, the administrative people at the doctor's office are fighting with your insurance companies to cover things that you need. I hear from doctors' offices all the time, like working with Medicare is a lot easier than dealing with insurance companies because there's so many insurance companies, so many different types of patients, so many different plans. It's a headache.
Alone,
it's
right?
bloated.
Let alone the profit. That's a good point. Let alone the profit aspect. There's also the interconnecting of all the different sources, you know, to try to get everybody on the same page. We're actually running out of time, but I want to real quick, if you have a closing comment you want to make, and we can pick up on this conversation because this is an ongoing conversation. What would you like to say in closing about this, and not only this issue, but how this is bringing people together as we go forward? Start with you, Kenneth.
Right, so, you know, what we need to do is we need to get people involved, and they need to become politically educated more than just voting. You know, when I talk to people on the ground, I tell them 29 million people are uninsured and 33
Yes.
million are actually underinsured. And in Los Angeles, 1 out of every 5 people don't have health insurance.
Oh my gosh.
And then we tell them the fact that we're the only major country that doesn't provide health insurance. Like, oh, I didn't know that. So I think it's going to be educating people and then telling them, you know, once you're educated on it, tell your family, tell your friends, and then we're going to get your contact info, and then we're going to let you know when the plan of action calls, which is when we work with groups like Jenni's groups and the Campaign for a Healthy California. So I love coalition building and building movements with people, and that's sort of what we
I
did.
see your passion, and we can find you on Facebook, right?
Right, Kenneth Meija for Congress, Meijia.
Excellent. And Jenni?
Those of you new to this fight, I would say this is not a new fight. The majority of the people in the state want it. They have wanted it. It's been in the legislature a number of times, either to die in the Senate or get vetoed twice by Schwarzenegger.
Yep.
We have to fight. We have to know that this is the most expensive place in the world to get sick. Please join this campaign for Healthy California. They are the ones pushing to make this bill pass. You can easily sign up for the campaign, may I?
Great.
Just text Healthy California to 69866, and you can sign up for updates to come to rallies and get notifications on progress of the bill. Join us.
Thank you very much, Kenneth Meija and Jenni Chang. Thank you for being on the Nowman Show. To be continued. This is Niswander, and you're watching the Nowman Show. Hello, this is Niswander of the Nowman Show. Be sure to watch all the fun on the Aurora channel, as well as YouTube, and of course all the social media, including Facebook, right now.
I like to watch the Nowman Show because it is better than the best show on all of TV.
Well, just right now, people seem to have a palate for, because our political system, I don't know if you've noticed, it's way more screwed up than it used to be.
Right.
And it used to be, and it's because of the consolidation of power, right?
Yes.
So what happened in the 1980s, there used to be 50 major media companies, which is a lot, that owned all the media in America. Now there's only 6, some people say 5, right? So that everybody works for the same company pretty much. So
Yes.
that's why we're living in even though we have a booming economy right now, corporations are sitting on $5 trillion and they're not investing in our economy, and they say because they don't have confidence in the economy. And I say, if $5 trillion doesn't give you confidence, I'd try dance lessons.
Right, exactly.
So we're having booming corporate profits. Meanwhile, the biggest income disparity since the Gilded Age. So there's a big broken political system, and the Occupy Wall Street people, which the big mistake they made was they asked for a living wage instead of a golden parachute. That's what they should have asked for. And it's funny, people are angry at poor people in America, and Occupy Wall Street wanted to call attention to that, and people got angry at them for pointing out the inequities. We're like our country, we're like adult children of alcoholics. We don't get mad at the guy who's beating us. We
Right.
get mad at the guy who's pointing out that someone's beating us. Hey, why are you pointing that out? So that's kind of where we are in America. And the problem also, we used to have a news media. We had Walter Cronkite in 60 Minutes. Well, the guys that used to investigate now bought the news media.
That's right.
So the problem with Brian Williams, everybody got mad at him because he puffed up his war record and he said he was on a helicopter that took a rocket fire, and it didn't, right? And then NBC threw him under the bus, and then he said that bus took rocket fire. The point is, with Brian Williams, the problem with him isn't him puffing up his resume. The problem with Brian Williams was that all through the Iraq War, he worked for General Electric, which was a huge defense contractor. And my question to Brian Williams is, how many checks do you take from a defense contractor in the middle of an illegal war before you stop calling yourself a news journalist? The answer turned out to be endless, right? So that's the problem with, and so the news media, if you've noticed, they've replaced objectivity with neutrality, because you can be objective and say that guy's a liar. You can be objective and say that's false. You can be objective and say science is a real thing. But if you replace it with neutrality, which is what they've done, now nobody's wrong and everybody's opinion is equal, especially the guy who's from the corporation who's wrong about everything, which is why half the country still thinks climate change isn't real, because they present it as a debate on the news.
Hello, this is Niswander, and I'm in the studio right now with Kenneth Meija, who is the Green Party candidate for the 34th District Congressional seat, as well as Brandon Rey Ramirez, who is Communications Secretary and Outreach with the Democratic Socialists of the LA. Guys, thank you for being on the Nowman Show.
Thanks for having
Thanks
us.
for having
Yeah.
us.
So, My pleasure. We're headed to uncharted waters right now. There's 2 elections now, and I think what we're seeing, because of how things have unfolded in the 2016 election, that a lot more people are engaged. So I'm seeing more and more people actually talking about the fact, oh, there actually is a 2018 election. Oh, before the 2020
There's
election.
something to look forward to.
There's something to look forward to. And that being said, you guys are in the forefront, I would say, of progressive coalition building. First of all, Kenneth, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, my name is Kenneth Meija. I'm a 26-year-old running for Congress in the April 4, 2017 special election, and I'm representing the Green Party. And I feel like it's time for a change. And I think what people have saw in the last election is people are not represented by both the Democratic or Republican Party, and so we're here to give people that option. I'm also a community organizer and a certified public accountant as well.
Wow, you're an accountant. I didn't know that. It's good to know.
Yeah, yeah.
What first got you interested in politics?
I'd say last year, Bernie Sanders was the one who got me politically engaged. And when I actually saw a public servant like him talking about helping people like, my mom, single mother, an immigrant, or helping the undocumented community or people of color, I thought, oh my God, there's actually a politician who actually cares. And so that's when I decided to get involved. And so.
Fantastic. Brandon, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm an organizer with the Democratic Socialists of America. So we are a multi-tenancy organization. We're a nonprofit organization. We're not a political party. So I basically got involved a little bit earlier than the Sanders campaign. I got involved with DSA during the Occupy campaign.
Yes.
So I was a student out in Philadelphia, and one of my professors was a vice chair of the Democratic Socialists of America, and that's how I got involved. But
and that's how you found out about the organization.
Yeah, that's how I found out about the organization, and definitely got kind of re-engaged with DSA with the Bernie Sanders campaign as well. So,
fantastic.
Yeah.
And so Kenneth is part of the what attracted you to the Green Party, and was it its platform? What motivated you to want to run for office?
Right. Well, I actually ran last year for the same seat in the Democratic Party, and the same seat against Javier Becerra as a write-in, and I campaigned for 2 months and got 1,177 write-in votes. So
wow.
That was pretty good, and I did it basically because I feel like it was time for our Congress people to make change and do something actually. And Bernie Sanders sort of propelled me forward to do that. And then after we sort of saw what happened with the DNC and what the party did to him, I felt like it was time to go. And I couldn't do Trump or Clinton. And so luckily there was Jill Stein, who was in the Green Party, and actually reading their platform, it's like more democratic and actually more progressive than both parties. So and then people are ready for that change. Over 60% of people want a third party. So
that's right. And we've seen also statistically that most people registered to vote are independent.
Exactly.
Not either Democrat or Republican. That's a fact. And Brandon, now you started to touch upon what the Socialist Party, well actually it's not a party, the Socialist Organization is about.
Right.
And you said
We're a multi-tendency organization.
Okay, what does that mean exactly?
So what that means is that we absolutely do think that electoral politics are important. We want more people to get engaged, like Kenneth, who are going ahead and saying, okay, we're tired of the way this works. We want to bring an alternative to politics outside the regular conservative liberal. But also the idea that we have to be engaged with actual activism, with pressuring politicians outside of elections, and actually building real education around ideology. So we're putting forward something that's different from regular neoliberalism or conservatism, something that's actually truly progressive.
And truly progressive and even terminology, like the word socialism.
Right.
Older generations still are not comfortable with that in this country.
Right.
Which shows that they're not educated about how their own history of socialism, and not educated about socialism as it exists currently around the world.
Right.
So whereas the millennial generation, on the other hand, they're very open to it. Like if you saw a clip on CNN in the town hall with Nancy Pelosi and that wonderful policy student from NYU, Trevor Hill, which went viral on the internet, which I'm going to do everything I can to make that even more viral.
And he's now one of ours.
And he's
so
now,
he's
you
now
sent him a membership application, right?
Yeah, he was sent a free membership from
Yeah.
the Democratic Socialists of America,
Yeah.
and I think he's going to be a great ambassador for DSA.
And that's the kind of activism that we need, to put a human face to it, to step outside the box, and not go with the usual way of doing things and say, okay, this is off script, but I'm going to do this,
Right.
and do it live, and you create the best teaching example that can possibly be created, because it forces someone to be human,
Right.
in that moment, to go off script and reveal the truth, and then give somebody something to think about.
Right.
What basically are your strategies going forward in what you do, not only in your coalition building, but in putting that message out there that there are alternatives to establishment ways of thinking and doing things? Kenneth?
Right, like what Brandon said, one thing that the local Green Party here is doing is we're actually out there in the community. We're out there in Skid Row doing meals, giving blankets. We're out there in Boyle Heights talking to people who are going to get kicked out of their homes because a new developer is going to build an apartment next there. We're out there, marching and rallying against deportation, and or Black Lives, when they get shot by police. We're out there in the community, and you don't sort of see that. And when they're like, "Oh my goodness, you're actually a Green Party member.
Yeah.
You actually are different than what we've seen," and I think right there it sort of gives them that human experience that there's actually hope out there, and then there's another option. So that's sort of what we're doing. We're really getting out there, not only through electoral politics. I think electoral politics is second to what we're doing. The first things we're doing is movement building, because like any change could happen only through movements, and so not through me, not through one person. And that's how we're doing it.
And Brandon, let's go back to you. What is your experience? I mean, I'm thinking right now that what we're seeing after the outcome of the last election, and there's another great video with the former outreach coordinator with comedian Lee Camp on his program called Redacted tonight. And he goes into detail about what actually happened during the primaries and is going forward, and now going forward. Okay, what we have seen, those of us that started with the Occupy Wall Street movement, we saw what I would say hundreds of thousands of people evolve into tens of millions with Feel the Burn. Now we have no way of knowing, because it seems like now that sort of energy is everywhere.
Right.
When you go into social media, and even the mainstream media can't ignore it anymore, or at least the fact that it's going on. They might ignore the amounts of numbers of people that are out on the streets. But so what are your tactics right now? What, as the socialists, Democratic Socialists here in LA and nationwide, what are the main goals right now ramping up for 2018 and 2020?
Yeah, in a similar way to what Kenneth was talking about, building movements and building coalitions. So we want to show that there's solidarity between Black Lives Matter movement, between the climate justice, between going to no Dakota Access Pipeline, socialist feminism. We want to show that basically it's all a shared struggle. And when everyone starts realizing that we don't need to retreat to our own little corners, and that everyone can be an activist for each other, and we all have one shared community, one shared goal, we tend to actually start seeing, okay, we have a common opposition.
Yes.
A common opposition tends
commonality,
to be,
a common ground.
And the common ground, as we're seeing in America 21st century right now, is that it's corporatism. That is not just the Republican Party, it's the whole corporate neoliberal kind of platform that they put forward. So that's really what we're opposed to and what we're building a movement against.
Fantastic. This is an ongoing story, so I'd like to have you guys back and we can talk some more about it, but this is where we begin on this show. So thank you very much, Kenneth Meija and Brandon Ramirez. Thank you so much, guys, for being on the Nowman Show. This is Niswander, and you've been watching the Nowman Show.
As a real progressive, as a person who's in favor of real change, real revolution, I like Bernie Sanders' campaign a lot. I talked about it a lot on the show because he had the right idea. Now, I think the ultimate change is, as I said, that amendment, the way to do it, we think, is Wolfpack. That's a PAC I created to defeat all other PACs and to get money out of politics. So we tell everybody, go to wolf-pac.com, join Team Revolution. we're taking it to the states. You need 34 states to call for a convention to get that amendment. We've already gotten 5 out of the 34. We just got 1 last week.
What is that?
Rhode Island. We got Rhode Island on the map. We've got the largest state in the union, California, on the map. By the way, it's nonpartisan. We've also had hundreds of Republicans vote for it because they hate crony capitalism. At the local level, they also hate the corruption. At the national level, unfortunately, almost all the politicians are corrupt. But at the local level, democracy still exists. That's why you can go to the states to get that amendment.
And be sure whenever you get involved with Wolfpack and use social media, put hashtag Team Revolution.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, go to wolf-pack.com. Join. You could support it if you don't have time. You can support it financially because we're not funded by millionaires and billionaires. We're funded by the American people, just like Bernie Sanders was. Or become a volunteer, better yet. Our volunteers, when they win, just like we did in Rhode Island last week, they say it's the greatest moment they've ever had. Because at the end of the Rhode Island victory, it was totally bipartisan. Every Democrat and every Republican voted for it.
Fantastic.
And the senators stood up and applauded our volunteers. They nearly broke down in tears. So you could be that hero. Don't wait for anyone else. You be the hero.
Thank you so much, Cenk. Cenk Uygur on The Nowman Show.
For the most part, we are only as good as our best party's worst policy. So the people need to be mad.
Right.
What do you see the Green Party's role is in creating these coalitions?
The strategic choice, I think, for progressives is, are you going to waste your time trying the failed experiment of saving the Democrats? Or are you going to work for electoral reform like proportional representation?
I think that we should not reform it. We should change the name to the non-democratic party.
It seems to me the civil rights movement must now begin to organize for the guaranteed income.
I mean, the wealth disparity in this country is absolutely ridiculous. The average CEO makes 475 times the average worker.
That's
and
crazy.
Adam Smith never foresaw this, by the way. You know,
California can do what every other democracy does, and that's have universal single-payer health care. It's going to save, they've estimated it's going to save like $3 trillion over 10 years. And,
oh my gosh.
And if we
Listen
do it
to
here,
that, $3 trillion. That's how many zeros?
That's a lot of zeros.
We have a responsibility in creating not only the art, but the art that actually has something to say.
Absolutely. We can see, what's going on. We can share our diversity. We can share everything about different cultures because we've come from different places. Count your blessings anytime. Count your blessings, you'll find. Count your blessings and you'll see. You are right where you should be.
I want money out of politics. Just, that's it. That needs to happen, and public financing of elections. And once we get that, we can proceed. But without that, we're not going anywhere.
There was a famous sign at an Occupy site, which is basically that, essentially, the root of all politics is money.
Yes.
Right. And if we look at every decision that is bad, it's rooted by special interests and corporate money.
Love is the reason for this song, and I've got to love you this way. The past is gone, the future is yet to come, it's now, right now. The present is here, the future is near, but it's right now. Being with you makes the party complete, so keep the body moving and sure shall have your feet. At the end of the night, when all is said and done, I wanna know I did the right thing and had a lot of